So I want to start. We're going to, spend this episode, this conversation, going all over this 400 plus page book and your newsletters and a bunch of the other ideas that you've contributed around creativity and design. But where I wanted to start was talking about the origin story of the book. I know that you spent 8 years as an English, major, so you were writing. You have a heavy writing focused background. So maybe you always thought about writing a book. Why write this book, and what was the origin story beside deciding to launch off on this challenge?
Yeah, I was 8 years of school. I did literature and philosophy 4 and then design for another 4, and it was a whole roller coaster. But this book came to life, or I planted the seed when I was 7 years old in first grade. And I walked into class, teacher handed out a worksheet. We've all been there. You got to color it, cut it out, put it on the board. Cool. So I am a competitive person by nature, and I wanted my worm, it was a little cartoon worm, to be the best worm in class. So, I sat there with my arm around it, and I'm coloring this thing. I'm like, oh, I'm talking to myself, it's going to be the best ever. Oh, my goodness, yeah. And then I cut it out. I go to the board, and I guess I took a long time because everybody had theirs up already, and they all looked the same. They were different colors, color with dots, but they're the same, and so was mine. I was so upset I couldn't put myself through putting that up on the board. So I turn around, I go to my desk. The teacher catches me, calls me out, and of course I said, "It's all right. I'll be right there." Well, I'm sitting at my desk. I think I might have even been crying. I was close to tears. 7-year-old Joey, and I'm looking down, hands, head in my hands, and I see the shards of paper, and I go ahead. I decide, oh my goodness, this is an opportunity. So I draw a boombox, a necklace, a microphone. I cut those out, put them on the worm, put it up, and now everybody is standing around me dumbfounded that I had done this. My worm is different from everyone else's. The teacher, I'll never forget, she looks at it and she goes, "I've never seen anything like it." And from that day forward, I was addicted to what I would later discover as creative thinking. It's just doing it different. Ideas that are not the norm, or a little bit remixed on what people expect. And lo and behold, as I'm growing up, I start to realize that people don't think they're creative. Most people think that creativity is reserved for designers or painters or sculptors or, others, but not themselves. And the older I got, the more angry and frustrated I got at this ridiculous idea. And so I took a ton of notes on my phone over 10 years, multiple phones actually. And eventually when I sat down to write it, the table of contents was done in a couple hours, and then I was off.
When you were writing the book, who did you have in mind that you were writing for? Because, as a designer, I found a lot of value by reading through the book. So as someone who kind of has lived a creative life or feel like I have those muscles and have flexed those muscles a lot, I found it really interesting. Who else did you write the book for? Who are you excited to read this book?
Yeah, that's a great question, because the common knowledge, wisdom, is that you write a book for a very specific person with a very specific need. And I think most of the time, the vast majority of the time, that's right. But I could not resolve that idea with the book that I had in my head. And I mentioned this to you earlier, but essentially, think of the dictionary. Who's the dictionary written for? It's not just one person. It's a host of types. And so I challenged myself to write this book for people who think they're creative and people who don't, and to constantly be looking at that from the two threads of, okay, what is someone who's not creative? How are they going to parse this? And someone who is, what are they going to get from this? And so I'm glad that you enjoyed it. And I have people in my life who don't consider themselves creative, and they've enjoyed it. So it's only the early days, but I hope that over time I realize that I've succeeded.